So let's jump straight into it, Luigi. We're going to have a quick run through some other computers that existed, coming from different parts of the world. We've got America, Japan, Hong Kong, different places in there as well. Okay, so we'll jump over to the computer, and I just want to show you some of the other computers from the time, okay? So we're going to go way back now to sort of pre-Golden Age 8-bit, and we're going to talk about Apple, and we're going to talk about IBM, because they were two massive names at the time. So this is a picture of what's called the Apple I computer that Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak created, and it actually came as this circuit board here, and therefore lots of people created their own cases for the actual computer to go in. So it's like an old Raspberry Pi style thing that they were buying, and then they came out with the Apple II a little bit later. Now these were pretty good computers actually. 1977 they came out. They had the 5.25-inch disk drive, only 4 kilobytes of RAM initially, and they also boast the first ever example of spreadsheet software, so a bit like Excel, but it was called VisiCalc. The issue with these computers is that in today's money they would have cost £5,000 or close to $6,000. So they were massively expensive in the later 70s, and therefore most people that I knew didn't have them. Okay, IBM is another name, and they also had a similar kind of issue with cost, but they were heavily involved in the business side of computing. They have a history that encapsulates lots and lots of innovation that has influenced the industry over the years. Yeah, no experience of them either from my perspective.
Yeah, they look like the things that almost you see in like older cartoons and stuff, and like in a school library or something they'll have a
Absolutely,
small,
yeah, it's that sort of thing, isn't
box.
it? Yeah, you see it in the films as well from the 1970s. Going back to Apple, there was the Macintosh, which is well worth pointing out. So the Macintosh was the first computer that didn't really come with a bundled language, so you didn't have to issue commands straight away, and it had a basic style, not to be confused with basic language, but a basic style graphical user interface as well. But other computer companies were up to similar things as maybe Commodore or Spectrum were doing. So let's have a look at this company here, Tandy.
Isn't that didn't young Sheldon have a Tandy?
He did, yeah, that's right. He did have a Tandy. The one I'm showing here is the TRS-80, which was a popular one again from the late 1970s that continued for a few years. But I think young Sheldon, if I'm not wrong, had the 1000, Tandy 1000 SL.
Sounds
which
right.
I think it was about 1984 that one came out. But they're all 8-bit computers. Lots of children had a lot of fun on them, similar to Texas Instruments and their 99.4 and 99.4A, which were similar computers, I suppose quite comparable to your Spectrums and your Amstrads of the time. So now going to South Wales, near Swansea, there was actually a company called Dragon, which is quite a cool name. The Dragon 32 and the 64 they came out with. What do you think the 32 and the 64 relates to?
Probably the kilobytes of RAM.
Absolutely, yep. So you had a smaller one and a bigger one. Tangerine Auric, well, they had the Auric 1 and the Auric Atmos, which had quite strange membrane keyboards on them. I think some kids had them and they played their games on them. Jupiter Ace was another computer that didn't really sell particularly well. Do you remember when we were speaking to Peter Leaper and he was talking about Forth language and using Forth to help with his Boulder Dash build? Well, that computer actually came bundled with the Forth language instead of BASIC, but it didn't sell very well at all. And then we start moving more overseas to places we haven't been yet, with Sword and the M5. This was a company from Japan, quite a limited run really. It used the Zilog Z80 processor, a bit like the Spectrum did. Quite limited RAM on that. There was Color Genies as well. There was a project called the Enterprise by Intelligent Software, which I think was around about 1983, if I'm not wrong. That was another UK based one. And then we've got this really powerful computer that came out quite late in 1989 called the Sam Coupe by MGT. Yeah, now this had either 256 kilobytes of RAM or 512, so it was really, really powerful, but It was an 8-bit computer coming out in 1989, so it didn't really stand much of a chance. They're very expensive now, I think, if you want to buy them. And then there's just one more honourable mention. So you remember when we went to see your friend, and your friend's dad is Spanish?
Yeah.
And he was being told about this project, and he said he used to have an MSX computer.
Oh, yeah.
Do you remember I asked him which one? And he wasn't sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's because MSX wasn't actually a manufacturer or a type of computer. It was actually a standard of computer that was developed. And the idea was that if you had different MSX computers being made by different manufacturers, they'd have lots of compatibility with software. So you'd still be able to use the same software, use the computers in the same way, but you might have a Sony MSX or a Yamaha MSX or a Canon MSX. And I know that you know all of those names. Yeah, so it was almost like an early take on, I suppose, what Bill Gates did with Windows and creating PCs that can be made by different companies but still are compatible with Windows and all the other applications that uses. Yeah. And if we had time, we could also talk about games consoles as well, but we can't. You know that there's so many games consoles as well. We could fill another series with those, but obviously the Nintendo Entertainment System and the Sega Master System and things like that, they were 8-bit consoles. There were Ataris as well, which Peter
maybe
Leeper was talking about.
If people want that, we can do one on consoles.
Yeah, so there you go. That's generally all of the microcomputer scene in a quick episode.
Yeah.
All right. No more questions?
No, I don't think I have many. Actually, no, I don't think I have any.
No. Okay. Well, look.
Other than one thing, why do most of them use the word Atmos? There's quite a few of them that have there's the Apple Atmos, is it? Not the Apple Atmos. Acorn Atmos.
There's the Acorn Atom.
Oh.
Yeah, it's the Auric Atmos and the Acorn Atom. There's quite a lot of A's, isn't there? Amiga, Atari, Atmos. It could be a coincidence, but when I was a child, there was something called the Yellow Pages, which was like a phone directory for businesses.
I think you've told me this. Yeah.
And companies would often name themselves with a name beginning with A, so that they were at the top of the list for their particular industry type or business type. Bit of extra information for you there, but now we go on to how does it work, and we're going to have a look at tapes and discs and cartridges.